We have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Fly could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Anomaly-NOW. I'm your host, Smiles Lewis. We are transmitting to you from Austin, Texas. This is the usually weekly news and media roundup for the nonprofit 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka the Anomaly Archives, dedicated to the preservation of all things anomalous, popular literature, academic research materials, correspondence, weird reports of all types, whether it be about anomalous cognition, consciousness, ESP, psi, etc., remote viewing, out-of-body experiences, life after death, Atlantis, cryptozoology, Bigfoot, lake monsters, the whole gamut, all the way through paranormal, parapsychology, hauntings, poltergeists, and all the way to UFOs and UAP. Again, this is Smiles Lewis. Thank you for joining us. It is Wednesday, May 30th. No, not 30th. Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. Thank you for joining us. So glad that you could be here. And well, let's just jump right in. We have a ton of news for you. And so, of course, we really need your support. If you could donate to us, you can go to anomalyarchives.org and you can subscribe to the blog there for free. You can go to our patreon.com/anomalyarchives page. You can subscribe there for free. You can sign up for our mailing list for free, but we could really use your donations, and you can send those via check to our P.O. Box. The P.O. Box information is there, of course, on our website, and scrolling at the bottom of your screen right now, the ways that you can contact us, contact@anomalyarchives.org is the email, and of course, there's a phone number, and there's a P.O. Box, and all the ways that you can reach out and contact us. Think about doing one of those. Oh, also like and subscribe, hit the notification bell on this YouTube or whatever you're watching this on. If you're watching it, we also do an audio only version of this. All the episode notes for each of these Anomaly-NOW shows are available at the anomalyarchives.org website. But really, you can also go to our, let's see. Yeah. So here's there is the Patreon. You can go to our patreon.com page and subscribe. We've got upcoming events. Oh, yes, coming up next Wednesday, May 27th, we will not be doing this show. Well, if I record a show next week, it'll be on a different day and time, because normally this is usually Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time is when we air this show. But we're going to have our monthly Anomaly Academy lecture. This month is being presented by local paranormal enthusiast Megan Keith on altered states of consciousness using flickering light from the Paleolithic era, shamanic practices, countercultural substances to the modern state of neurological studies. That's going to be, again, presented by Megan Keith next Wednesday, May 27th for Anomaly Archives patrons. You can go find out more about that over at our Patreon page. And here is a placard for that. We hope that you'll consider joining at the Anomaly Academy tier so that you can get access to that. Who knows, maybe we'll surprise folks and have that more widely available. Of course, you can also go over to our Flipboard. That's flipboard.com @Anomaly Archives. That's the @ Flipboard, BOARD.com /@ Anomaly Archives. And then click through and you can find just thousands upon thousands of news articles, some of which we'll be discussing today. right now, momentarily. Yeah. So what do we have to talk about? Well, we always like to cover a wide variety of news, and there is some upcoming. What we got? Oh, right. Coming up, Symposium 2026. That's right. The Center for the Impossible. That would be the AOTI Archives of the Impossible. They're at Rice University in Houston, Texas. They are presenting Breaking the Taboo, Reviving Academic UAP Abduction and Experiencer Research, free online only event, Friday, July 10th, 2026, organized by Karen Austin, the director of the John Mack Institute. This link information is actually at johnemackinstitute.org, and you can register for free. Again, organized by Karen Austin, Michael Bolender, and Kimberly Ingalls. Excellent people to be organizing this event. I know I've spoken on this channel and this show so many times about the wonderful work being done by Jeffrey Kripal and others through the Rice University Archives of the Impossible. Coming up, their introduction and welcome from Jeff Kripal. Session 1, the experience and its integration, with an amazing lineup, extraordinary contact featuring Deborah Jordan Cobble. Of course, she was the main focus of Bud Hopkins' initial abduction books. Another presentation, The Phenomenon as a Driver of Evolutionary Psychological Development, by Matthew Roberts, former naval intelligence analyst. Helping experiencers through ontological shock with community, peer support, and compassionate care. Right on, by Andrea Odo, founder of the Anomalous Coalition, and Charles Holt, co-founder of Reddit Experiencers, the subreddit. Also, After the Phenomenon, Mental Health and Meaning Making, by Simon Bresler, who's a clinical director of the John Mack Institute. Session 2, Translating Experience into Knowledge, Foundations, Challenges, and Global Perspectives. Experiencer to Researcher, Examining the Evidence for Contact, presented by Karen Austin. And then Transformed into What? Measuring Identity and Action After Exceptional Experience, presented by Beth Glick, doctoral researcher at California Institute of Human Sciences. Oh, and Pan-African Ufology, Africa's Experience with Non-Human Intelligence, presented by Tim Morithi, Professor of African Studies, University of Cape Town, South African representative to the International Coalition of Extraterrestrial Research, that's ICER. Session 3, Normative Questions, the Ethics of Contact, quote unquote, not without my consent, the human ethics view on the use of force by alien intelligence and encounters and with humans, presented by Michael Bolender, chair in global law and SETI policy at Durham University. Another presentation, The Limitations of Anthropocentric Ethics, Navigating Morality Amidst Epistemic Gaps, presented by, yes, Kimberly Ingalls. And then response and commentary, Brenda Densler, author of The Lure of the Edge. Right on. Fine, fantastic. Got to go check that out. Free online event, folks. Can't beat that. There's a bunch of other great stuff going on. We've got over at the show notes page, we've got links to the Society for Scientific Exploration. That's the SSE. They've been doing a series of Maverick talks that you can find out more about. Coming up in June, next month, SSE, Society for Scientific Exploration, are doing their 2026 conference, and you can find out more about that. And the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, that our good friend Robert Powell and others organize, they are putting on their big conference, and you can now see a full speaker lineup by clicking through the links there. Other recent events that you should probably check out, we've got links to the Disclosure Foundation's UAP Innovation Policy and the Future of National Security, presented at the, creepy, Yale UFO Society. Yes, we've talked about them before, using their alien gray head with the skull and crossbones image as their logo. And again, mentioning Kimberly Ingalls, she recently presented part of the UAP Studies Seminar Series, Resisting Narrative Flattening, Epistemic Justice for Experiencer Testimony. And then other recent events that have come and gone, but I hope they were well attended. The Swamp Gas UFO Conference for 2026, and From Mystery to Method, the SUAPS, that's the Society for UAP Studies, MOOC Seminar Series. So check that out. Yeah, coming up, we've got, did I mention? Yes, The Archivist. There's this new trailer out for a documentary called The Archivist, and it's not really paranormal related, but it's basically Weird Walk Presents. It's basically about an individual who was recording through video and audio interviews and just documenting this local village, this local town's culture and their cultural events and the fun, strange outsider art kind of approach to their fun and shenanigans. And so he's not the person that it's about is not technically an archivist, but he has been made to become so because he's been documenting all this material. So I think you'll get a kick out of it. You should go check out that trailer. It's about 2 minutes long, so not that long. And I'd play it, but we got lots to get through right now. Of course, there's still the big news about all the hubbub about the president putting out the UFO documents, quote unquote, disclosure. I think I've already said, maybe I didn't a week or two ago or whenever I did the last show, there's really not that much to be excited about here. In some ways, it is a big deal, but in most ways, as far as I'm concerned, it is not a big deal. But this is being touted as Pursue for Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. Again, you can go to our anomalyarchives.org page for the Pursue online database, which is hosted by, sadly, the Department of War. That's war.gov/UFO. That's just my opinion. There's a lot of good links there that you can find to information and reporting on this, but I don't really have much to say about that. I do want to, let me jump back and do the obligatory warning. If you or anyone you know are suffering from suicidal ideation or depression, please get some help and go to various online resources. Contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can call the phone number 988 for help. I say that as preface to what happened in the last several days. This past weekend or late weekend, I guess it was Sunday here in Austin, I was out of town. I was coming back into town. I was out of town on family-related business, and my phone started buzzing. I was getting texts from the Austin Police Department. Then my wife called to give me a heads up about what that was about. She didn't really have any details at the time. There was basically text from APD saying, go to social media for details, but basically lock down, shelter in place. So South Austin residents, which is a fairly large area, were told to shelter in place due to a active crime scene or active shooter situation. And as many people already know, because it's been reported on in the national media, there were a series of random shootings that started Saturday, but which ramped up dramatically Sunday, and which resulted in a massive manhunt for the individual or individuals responsible. All three were captured without incident. Several people were injured. I don't think anybody had life-threatening injuries. But it turns out the three individuals are minors, 17 and younger, I believe, and they had been seemingly targeting local fire stations, but also just randomly shooting with stolen guns from stolen vehicles. There's obviously a lot more to this story that has yet to be reported, but the chase ended, I think, in Manor, a small town just east of Austin, where the three individuals, I think, were hiding inside of a local's barn. And what to say about this? It then likely, I don't want to. You can never draw these connections definitively, but as somebody who studied the copycat effect, I was immediately taken by the fact that the very next day there was this San Diego mosque shooting with, again, multiple teenagers, and in both cases, their mothers spoke out, and in at least the case of the mosque, had notified law enforcement that their weapons were missing and that their child had been expressing suicidal ideation. I believe one of the children of the Austin shooters had similarly spoken publicly after the fact that her son needed some kind of intervention. With the Austin situation, it's very complicated in so much as, there's some very strange things that have been happening locally with regard to a local gun store owner and his gun store. And I'm not making this political. This is a local individual named, I believe, what is it? Michael Cargill. Yeah, Michael Cargill runs a store called Central Texas Gun Works. He's often been in the news for various reasons, but in the last 6 months, I think he and his employees have been in the news at least 3 times. Of course, none of this is parapolitical per se. None of this is paranormal or anomalous per se. Sadly, gun violence in this country is not anomalous. All this is to say, I've spoken out publicly before about the fact that I'm a survivor of a mass shooting in 1979 at the San Antonio Fiesta Parade sniper incident. And of course, our country has just gotten worse in this regard ever since. And it just feels like these two events, a lot of the reporting is focusing on the use of license plate readers to catch the individuals. Obviously, there are a lot of controversial cameras being deployed across the country and getting a lot of pushback from people. Here in Austin, there's been pushback from locals to remove them or cease the contracts with some of these surveillance cameras that use license plate reading technology. All of this is just to say, please be careful and try to help people who are in psychological mental distress so that we don't get to this kind of a situation. But it just seems very strange that these things are ramping up and that there perhaps is a change, a mutation in the copycat effect that's creating a much stronger crossover with hate crimes and rage shootings and just random acts of violence by teenagers whose brains have not fully developed yet. Maybe there's much more going on here than that. Maybe there's something truly strange, but I don't know. I just felt obligated to talk about that. All right, back to what I was trying to say. So yes, the president has, of course, been touting his revelations with the UFO, UAP materials. And of course, a lot of people have very politicized views about this, understandably, given the controversial nature of our current president. This metro.co.uk article titled "Donald Trump Walks with Alien and Blows Up Targets from Space in Bizarre Posts" is obviously an example of this. The president has, of course, been no stranger to posting strange things on Truth Social and his social media network, as if that's, an office at the White House or something. I do want to say, one of the images he posted, which you can see here, it's an AI generated image. All these images are AI generated, is a very realistic looking but fanciful image of him walking next to a captured humanoid alien, a big gray alien with big black slanted eyes, who is in chains. And I gotta say, and this is just me personally speaking, this image to me strikes me as being very provocative. To me, it evokes subtle racism in terms of it looks like a slave. And the alien is in chains and they're being escorted by men in black and the military in the background. This is the kind of junk we're dealing with. Yeah, right. So in the show notes, I've got a cropped version of that image. I mean, that alien looks like a badass, aside from being in chains. Meanwhile, this is such a politicized situation. Over at theguardian.com, we have this opinion piece. The release of the UFO files won't satisfy conspiracy theorists, but it certainly serves Trump's agenda. If there's no proof of aliens, the president can blame the deep state. If there's proof, he's a hero. Either way, it helps his popularity. I'm not saying either way. I'm just pointing out that obviously, as a very controversial political figure, anything and everything he does is also very controversial. Kind of a random aside here, and I'm not going to dwell on any of this, but there's this other headline. What is this from? Oh, it's a YouTube. Trump threatens to stop endorsing Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert. I don't know what the reason for that is, but it just struck me as, oh yeah, remember back in October of last year, on our October 15th, 2025 episode of Anomaly-NOW, we reported on Rep. Lauren Boebert's re-election campaign that was asking, are aliens real? And we played video. Lauren Boebert's re-election campaign advocates for answers about aliens. So I bring that up just to give an example of where the president's support of any particular person, and as we've pointed out and others have as well, the majority of the quote-unquote bipartisan UFO caucus, UAP caucus, the people in Washington who are advocating for UFO-related disclosure are majority right-leaning conservative Republicans. And Boebert would be one of those. All of them staunch supporters of the president. But as has been shown, when the president feels you've fallen out of favor or betrayed him or his administration, you become on the outs. And Boebert seems to have crossed some line in that regard, despite being a member, so to speak, of this UFO UAP caucus in Washington, for whatever that's worth. Some other UFO news, lots of headlines over at sentinel-news.org. France's National Assembly to host UAP conference, one of the oldest countries to have a public official UAP investigation group, GEIPAN, that's GEIPAN, will be hosting the conference, which will be exploring the topic of UAP, quote, beyond the realm of fantasy, unquote. This is written by Baptiste Friscore over at sentinel-news.org. Says in an intriguing Facebook post, Arnaud St. Martin, MP, announced that he will organize the conference on June 29, 2026, in the largest hall of the National Assembly, which seats 250 people, with the support of the Space Studies National Center, CNES GEIPAN. He will be joined by Pierre Henriet, MP and Vice President of the Parliamentary Office for the Evaluation of Scientific and Technological Choices, that's OPECST. The OPEXT is, quote, a joint advisory body to the National Assembly and the Senate, comprising 18 members of the National Assembly and 18 senators. Its remit, as set out in the law, is to, quote, inform Parliament of the implications of scientific and technological choices with a view in particular to informing its decisions, unquote. It thus provides Parliament with the expertise needed to inform long-term policy decisions. This is just to say that, we are seeing a shift across the planet of a more respectability level with regards to UFOs, largely due to this post-2017 rebranding as UAP. But I would also add, France has been kind of at the forefront, so it's not that unusual for them to be making these kinds of moves. All one has to do really is check out Jacques Vallée's work on this, and you can find out more about the backstory of the long history of UFO investigations by the French government. Some other headlines. There's a great podcast called UFO Talker. One of the more recent episodes features Dr. Richard F. Haynes talking about UFOs during the Vietnam War, including a UFO that hovered over Nha Trang Air Base and cut off all power. And wonderful friend of the show, Massimo Teodrani, has uploaded to, where is that? Where did he upload that to? It's a PDF that you can download for free from researchgate.net, and that is The Physics of the Impossible Possible, 6 theoretical physics models for anomalous aerial phenomena, including wormholes, brains, plasma, and beyond. Now, as he stresses, this is not a UFO book. However, much of the technology and phenomena that he's addressing has relevance, obviously, to aspects of the UFO phenomenon. Massimo is somebody I really hope that we can present for one of our monthly Anomaly Academy lectures, and I highly recommend you check out his material, his work. Now, shifting, actually, before we go to that, I was going to mention these other things. House Republicans request UFO talk from private contractor. That's from The Hill, thehill.com. And of course, this is also in conjunction with News Nation, a quote-unquote mainstream news outlet that seems to be peculiarly focused on UFOs. The article starts by saying, as lawmakers continue to pursue transparency regarding alleged secret UFO programs operated by the Pentagon, one Republican is now pursuing private contractors. Rep. Eric Burleson, Republican of Missouri, announced Friday on social platform X that he sent a letter to MIT Lincoln Labs regarding a, quote, flying saucer talk from 1952. I sent a letter to MIT Lincoln Labs asking for a classified 1952 briefing video referenced as a flying saucer talk. Their attorneys wrote back fast, he wrote. They'll comply within 30 days. Congressional letters carry weight. We are going to keep sending them. Whistleblower David Grush, whose technology regarding alleged secret retrieval programs for UFOs or UAP kicked off a series of congressional hearings, has stated private contractors are being used to make it more difficult for lawmakers to obtain information on certain programs. This is an old idea promulgated by a number of different people, Jacques Vallée, Hal Puthoff, and others, that indicates that this could be a way, has been a way for the military-industrial complex to sidestep FOIA and congressional oversight with these black projects, these black budget-funded programs, allegedly. Also, there's a good video that you want to check out, Social Intelligence About UAP Abductions, put out by Human Institute. The description reads, Dr. Ron Westrom, Emeritus Professor of Sociology at Eastern Michigan University, speaks about the cultural dynamics and impediments that influence the recognition of the impact of NHI, non-human intelligence. His talk will focus on abductions, one of the harder pieces of data for conventional science to address. Really, I'm looking forward to watching that. Now, moving into the realm of conspiracy. So, of course, this administration has been pushing this supposed government transparency, government weaponization agenda, trying to declassify masses of files that have typically been categorized as fomenting conspiracy theories, such as the JFK files, the JFK assassination files, the RFK assassination files, the Martin Luther King MLK assassination files. But of course, they've also been charged with uncovering the secrets, making transparent secret documents and government operations related to things like everything from 9/11 to COVID, etc. Well, there was a very interesting hearing held recently featuring a quote-unquote CIA whistleblower, James Erdman, Erdman III, who testified before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And yeah, some very interesting tidbits in there. I'm going to go ahead and play a couple of clips from that. Here we go.
I am a career CIA operations officer, and as you mentioned, I was on joint duty assignment at the Office of Director National Intelligence Directors Initiatives Group, or the DIG, between March 2025 and April 2026. I was responsible for leading the DIG's investigation into COVID origins, anomalous health incidents, and unidentified anomalous phenomena.
COVID origins, AHI, anomalous health incidents, and unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. That's pretty wild. We've already been hearing that this panel, this investigation group, has been digging into all of this. But it was still, again, this particular presentation was titled CIA Whistleblower Alleges Federal Cover-Up of COVID-19 Origins. And I'm not here to address that. You can listen to his testimony and do your research and come to your own conclusion. But I was not expecting to hear reference to AHI, anomalous health incidents, nor unidentified anomalous phenomena. So it just, again, it just seems very odd to me when these things get all lumped together. I mean, obviously, anything can be covered up and manipulated, and these happen to be three things that he says he was tasked with looking into. If you're not familiar with AHI, anomalous health incidents, this has become just like UAP replaced UFO. AHI has kind of replaced what was previously, and still to some degree, described as Havana syndrome, these alleged attacks on various diplomats and their family members, American government staff members, and others by possibly acoustic, psychotronic, electromagnetic weaponry that has caused them extraordinary health issues. But that is a whole other area, but it dovetails with UFO UAP research, particularly because of the claims of researchers like Gary Nolan and who's the other person I'm thinking of? Well, I'm drawing a blank. There's another famous friend of Jacques Vallée's who has also reported similar overlap of health effects. Anyway, you can watch the entire video of this gentleman, this alleged CIA whistleblower being interviewed by the panel. But he made another significant claim that is worth noting, and I wanted to play this video here.
When the dig ceased operations, the CIA also took back 40 boxes of JFK files and MK Ultra files being processed for declassification by D&I Gabbard.
Now, that is just a brief aside, but it created a little bit of a stir in so much as Rep. Anna Luna, one of the UAP caucus members and one of the leading drivers of the UFO UAP disclosure movement on the part of these right-leaning Congress people, she has threatened to subpoena CIA over MK Ultra files. Now, she went on, I guess, News Nation and made this claim about what this supposed CIA whistleblower has said. And it's kind of just a weird one-off too, just with regard to this. First of all, obviously, with all of these big information dumps, JFK files, etc., or with like the Epstein files, there have been these massive dumps of data. However, it's often done in a very haphazard, to say the least, manner. And as several people have pointed out, several reputable news outlets have reported, with the Epstein files particularly, it's estimated that only 3% of the data has actually been released. So there's still the majority of data has still not been released. Well, obviously that's likely the case with the release of the UFO files, JFK files. And in fact, again, the current president has for some time advocated for the release of the JFK files, as have so many for so long. But there's always pushback from the intelligence community saying, there's reasons for us to not release certain things. One would think they could redact the most sensitive information, which is usually what they've done under the situations dealing with FOIA, et cetera. But so it's not that strange for there to be held back documents. Now, it's my understanding that hierarchy-wise, Tulsi Gabbard, controversial though she is the top of the chain, and that the CIA should not be able to just come and grab boxes of documents the way as has been alleged here. The other thing I just want to say was with the MK Ultra files, it's always been the understanding of the majority of researchers that those documents, the vast majority of them, are already out there and have been released. And there's a lot of them. However, it's always been known that Jesse Helms, I believe, who was then CIA director, shredded and burned, destroyed a large tranche of them. And it's been assumed that those were some of the ones that he got rid of were the worst evidence of chicanery, shenanigans on the part of the CIA as part of the various MK Ultra and its many sub-programs, including presumably the most heinous involuntary experiments on children, etc. So there are supposed missing MK Ultra related documents. However, it's always been believed that they weren't actually physically in existence anymore. So that is very interesting because, of course, it would be fascinating to see what was destroyed, and it would probably cause quite a stir. So meanwhile, there have been contradictions to this claim of this supposed whistleblower. Newsweek.com reports DNI denies CIA raided Tulsi Gabbard's office. What we know. And this is very brief, but it reads, a spokesperson for the Director of National Intelligence is denying claims that the CIA raided DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard's office to seize dozens of boxes containing files related to the MK Ultra program and assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Olivia Coleman, press secretary for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, referenced a since deleted post by Fox News host Jesse Waters on X late Wednesday regarding the alleged raid. Quote, "This is false. The CIA did not raid the DNI's office," unquote, Coleman wrote. About an hour earlier, Republican Representative Anomaly-NOW of Florida clarified that the CIA took documents, quote, that ODNI has jurisdiction over during the purported incident. Quote, also, this did not happen today and was not a raid. However, it did take place and we are just being made aware of it based on reporting, etc., unquote, Luna wrote on X late Wednesday. The lawmaker previously told News Nation that she was notified that the CIA, quote, took documents out of ODNI, multiple boxes pertaining to the JFK files as well as MK Ultra, unquote. Luna told the outlet that the alleged incident was troubling because of an executive order from President Donald Trump directing the declassification of all files related to JFK and MK Ultra, the CIA's Cold War era mind control experiment. Newsweek contacted Luna's office and ODNI for comment via email and the CIA by website form outside normal business hours. On X, Luna shared a letter addressed to CIA Director John Ratcliffe, asking him to preserve all existing and future records and materials related to the subjects. She referenced testimony to the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee that alleged the CIA had taken 40 boxes that were being processed for declassification from Gabbard's office. The CIA, which is under the oversight of ODNI, has not commented on the allegations. Quote, "These are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed," unquote, Luna told News Nation. She later clarified her remarks on X, writing that the CIA, quote, "took documents that ODNI has jurisdiction." Also, this did not happen today and was not a raid. However, it did take place and we were just being made aware of it. Yes, she already said that. And of course, what sparked Luna's allegations was this alleged whistleblower, James Erdman. A CIA spokesperson commented on the hearing on X, writing on Wednesday, quote, "The committee acted in bad faith by subpoenaing an agency officer for testimony today without notifying CIA, despite having already obtained closed-door testimony from the individual previously. The witness testifying today is not appearing as a whistleblower in pursuit of the truth, but instead in response to the subpoena issued by Chairman Paul." That would be Rand Paul, I believe. Quote, "This proceeding amounts to nothing more than dishonest political theater masquerading as a congressional hearing. As the CIA has already assessed, COVID-19 most likely originated from a lab leak, and efforts to undermine that conclusion are disingenuous." Anyway, there's more there. They do address the separate issues regarding the JFK files and the MK Ultra files. Interestingly, the final sentence of this in addressing the MK Ultra file says, quote, it is not a quote, I'm quoting the article. "In December 2024, the National Security Archive and ProQuest declassified about 1,200 documents pertaining to the program detailing the CIA's experiments with drugs, hypnosis, and other mind control techniques during the era." Well, let's take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, just briefly keeping with Representative Congresswoman Luna. Interestingly, the Soul Foundation recently put out a video where they interviewed Congresswoman Luna and Dr. Avi Loeb on breaking UAP disclosure news. I haven't had the chance to watch this, but I'm a little surprised at seeing Soul Foundation interview these two people. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there you go. All right. What next? Well, I was going to make my way to, yes, where is that? Yes, paranormal news, paranormal and parapsychological news. Just briefly, there's a new video out by CBS Texas, News Channel 11. Major restoration aims to bring Mineral Wells' iconic Baker Hotel back to life. If you're not familiar with all the many towns in our great big state of Texas, Mineral Wells is one that has its own interesting history. There's this giant, amazing old structure that's been empty for a long, long time, under restoration for a long, long time, called the Baker Hotel. And there's a big soiree happening soon to, I guess, promote and probably get some money funding to continue their restoration of this hotel. But as you might expect, it has its own history of being haunted. So there's a number of links out there about the various haunting stories related to the Mineral Wells iconic Baker Hotel. You'll want to go check those out. But this video itself is fun. Just about 4 or 5 minutes long, just as an introduction to the Baker in its current state. But you might find that interesting. Meanwhile, we have the headline. It's actually over at the spr.ac.uk website. Our good friend David Metcalf has written a review of the book Paranormal Media Beyond Hauntology by Jason Lee. He starts his review by saying, in 2019, 2 books were published that mark clear trends in the future of anomaly studies, or perhaps more accurately, signaled where things were at and where they are going. The 2 books were The Flip, Epiphanies of Mind and the Future of Knowledge by Jeff Kripal, 2019, and American Cosmic UFOs, Religion and Technology by Pasolka, 2019. Both highlight a pivot from the standard academic practice of utilizing the outre as the foil against which to frame abstract theory, or a subject to be used as a marketable frame to introduce academic discussions that have nothing to do with the anomalous. What distinguishes these works is not advocacy for paranormal claims, but a refusal to reduce the anomalous reports in advance to pathology, symbolism, or media effect. And he jumps forward to talking about this book, Jason Lee's new short book, 87 pages, including references and index, Paranormal Media Beyond Hauntology, represents a throwback to the kind of material and framework that was allowed for the paranormal to exist as a matter exclusive of any attempt to actually deal with the fact that surveys on belief are quite different from reported experiences of individuals. Belief can be mediated as can perceived interpretation of an experience, but serious scholarship can no longer dismiss such reports solely as mediated misperception without engaging the growing interdisciplinary literature surrounding anomalous experience. Pretty deep dive review there, much more to read and process, but David is going to be one of our presenters for upcoming Anomaly Academy lecture. I believe that's coming up next month in June, and promises to be a really fascinating discussion by a very amazing intellect, David Metcalf. Meanwhile, over at Vice.com, this is a weird one, folks. New theory suggests that alternate universe versions of you are determining your fate. The observer effect has been twisted into a human-centered myth, according to one physicist who says reality changes through interactions. What if you aren't actually in control of your own destiny? What if another version of you from some parallel universe is steering the wheel of your life? Or what if an infinite number of alternate yous are all tugging at the controls simultaneously? That's essentially the argument physicist Vlatko Vedral laid out recently in Popular Mechanics, using quantum physics to dismantle the idea that human consciousness magically creates reality. First, let's start by defining the observer effect, because it's the widely accepted idea that Vedral is smashing apart. The observer effect is the idea that simply observing or measuring something inevitably alters it. One classic example is a tire pressure gauge. By checking tire pressure, you're allowing a small amount of air to escape. Thus, by merely observing and measuring, you have altered the subject. A physicist says quantum physics may be stranger than the observer effect. According to Vedral, the observer effect has been badly mangled by decades of internet philosophy and stoner dorm room interpretations of quantum mechanics. The simplified version says that particles exist in multiple states until someone observes them, causing reality to quote-unquote collapse into a single outcome. The idea became so popular and widely accepted, largely for the wrong reasons, that it even trickled down into New Age spirituality, where people tried to manifest wealth with positive vibes, assuming that they can pull the strings of the universe with their mere acknowledgement of said strings. The observer effect is a very human-centric concept that may even seem a bit arrogant. Yeah. Vlatko Vedral is basically arguing that quantum physics doesn't say humans magically create reality just by looking at things. Instead, reality is constantly changing us through every interaction we have with the world. You are changing because you have become part of one possible outcome rather than another. Vedral then takes the idea even further, suggesting that all these alternate versions of reality still technically exist and may even influence one another under very specific conditions. In simple terms, there may be countless slightly different versions of you constantly being created by every tiny interaction you have with the world, most of which you'll never notice. It's a lot to wrap your head around. It's the kind of thing you probably shouldn't even begin to contemplate before you've had your morning coffee or 5 morning coffees and an Adderall. Yes, okay. Enough of that. And let's see what was up next on the agenda. I'm going to have to call it. There's some other great articles you might want to check out under our Consciousness, Mind, and Beyond, articles about out-of-body experiences, the afterlife, near-death experiences, and dreams. Some of those headlines, they said they left their bodies over at futureincosmos.blogspot.com, as well as she died during routine surgery. Scientists think her brain simulated heaven, but is that the whole story, over at popularmechanics.com? This one over at ashleyknib.com, Dreams Against Time, Precognition, Retrocognition, and the Sleeping Mind, as well as over at thedebrief.org, Dreams May Reflect More Than Past Experience, New Study Finds. And there's this interesting one over at the New York Times, Inside the Interstitium, the Human Body's Hidden Pathways. Oh, so let's end on some nice thoughts here. ABC News, in the midst of all their negative news, had a couple of different things that I thought would be interesting to share here. What do we have? Right. This is a really brief clip. You probably heard about this mid-air collision of jet fighters at an air show. Let's see if I can bring this up here.
Truly miraculous that both aircraft stuck together, now inverted, both crews ejecting just feet apart and getting parachutes before the aircraft hit the ground.
And David, even more miraculous, only one crew member was injured, and the injuries are not life-threatening. David?
Martha Radis reporting tonight. Martha, thank you.
And then at the end of that same broadcast, I only bring that up just because it is pretty amazing. If you watch the footage, these aircraft, it's almost like they were just magnetized together and fell together. It's bizarre. And as they say, miraculous. Is it truly? But thank goodness nobody was killed or seriously injured. This last thing, there may be a very prosaic explanation, but it just falls into like, was this prophecy by a 4-year-old child of her own future marriage? You be the judge. At the end of this episode, ABC News likes to do their quote unquote America Strong, some kind of upbeat story. And it says basically, bride's dad surprises wedding with recording of his daughter talking about her future husband at the age of 4. Check this out.
Her friends, Gracie, Rachel, Kylie, Sarah, all of whom are still her friends, and they were all there. And then Dad asks her about the groom. With the camera panning over to her new husband, Max, just listen to what she says when Dad asks that 4-year-old for a name. She says Max. Her new husband, Max, shocked. The two met in college, but somehow Jordan naming Max 26 years ago.
All right. Whatever. Not that miraculous, perhaps, but, interesting, fun, heartwarming story. All right. Please hit the like and subscribe button, notification bell, all that good stuff. Please do consider joining Anomaly Archives, Patreon, etc. We've got lots happening here in the future. Next week, as I've mentioned, is going to be our upcoming lecture by our local good friend, Megan Keith, where she's going to present on altered states of consciousness using flickering light. And that'll be, I think we're having that at 7 p.m. So our usual Wednesday night time for Anomaly Now, we'll be having this event. And we hope that you'll join us. And thank you for watching. That's going to be it. Good night.